Things have really gone from bad to worse for Donald Trump, and JD Vance didn't do his campaign any favors with his latest cringe-worthy rally in Michigan. To give you some hard data, today's favorability polling from 538 has 34.4% of voters viewing Vance as favorable, while a 45.7% view him as unfavorable, giving Vance a whopping net total of a negative 11.3 favorability rating, which means he is still the least liked running mate in American history. So, to set the tone for how poorly this campaign is going for Vance, Trump, and the Republicans, here is Tommy Tuberville, the MAGA senator from Alabama, who seems so shocked at how well Kamala Harris is doing that he accuses her of being artificial intelligence.
They're trying to get her elected the worst possible candidate they could put there, but in 90 days they're trying to get her across the finish line. She's the first ever AI presidential candidate.
Desperation. Basically, Harris is running such an effective campaign that Republicans think she's a robot, but the only robot we'll be covering today is JD Vance, who has the personality of a robot. That is, if robots had a weird obsession with couches, dolphins, and forcing women to stay in violent marriages. But before we get into that, let me first defend Kamala Harris, who is a real-life human candidate with favorable policies and an incredible track record as VP. In fact, her accomplishments are so apparent that Donald Trump, during his rally yesterday in North Carolina, tried to take credit for all the jobs she and Biden added back to the economy after his administration lost them.
Most of the jobs that were created in our country, and all of the jobs, almost all, were bounce back. They came from me.
Wait a second, Donald. At your last rally, you claimed all the post-COVID jobs went to quote-unquote illegal aliens. Now you're trying to take credit for them? More mixed signals from the 78-year-old GOP nominee who, by the way, is only responsible for the record amount of job losses accrued under his failed tenure. He had nothing to do with Biden and Harris's record job growth. Now, let's go to Vance, who knows darn well he can't campaign on Trump's abysmal track record, which is why he pivoted to a new talking point, which was to claim that the most important issue in this race is having a person of character in the Oval Office when explaining why he's supporting adjudicated rapist Donald Trump.
The most important thing is not that we agree on 100% of the issues, it's that we have a person of character and courage under fire in the Oval Office.
Nothing says character like a man who defrauded kids' cancer charities, mocked disabled reporters, and bragged about sexually assaulting women several times. And nothing says courage under fire like a draft dodger who feigned having bone spurs to get out of serving his country and who tear-gassed peaceful protesters during his first term. I don't think you're going to win this race on character, JD, which even he seems to know is a losing message because he later went on to bring back up the quote-unquote assassination narrative, implying that Democrats tried to shoot Donald Trump.
But I had this conversation, and I had this conversation with the president about 1:45 on Sunday, the day that he was shot. And he called me. I was home with my 7-year-old son in Cincinnati, and he said, "JD, they just tried to do it again." I said, "They tried to do what again?" And he said, "Well, they tried to shoot me."
They being a guy who voted for Donald Trump in 2016 and who wanted Vivek Ramaswamy to be president? Yeah, we don't own him, JD. He's all yours and Donald Trump's. Mind you, this is JD's closing message to a crowd in the battleground state of Michigan, not discussing policies or substance, just more conspiracies. And to make matters worse for himself, he goes on to bully a reporter from a local newspaper in Michigan and lets his crowd boo the guy for a long and uncomfortable period of time without even the slightest effort to stop them.
Peter Cobes from the Traverse City Record Eagle, our hometown newspaper. Yay and boo.
That's all right.
That's okay. We're used to it.
We're having fun. You're allowed to ask your question. They're allowed to tell you how they think about it, right?
So,
that's okay. This is America.
Yikes, there he goes belittling local workers in Michigan and intimidating a member of the free press, a strategy that will definitely not play well with swing or rural voters. Speaking of the free press, a reporter goes on to ask Vance a really solid question about Trump's excuse for why he backed out of the debate, and it triggers both the crowd and JD Vance in another moment that reveals how bad he is at this whole campaigning thing.
Thank you for doing this, Senator.
He's back there.
Thank you for doing this, Senator. My question for you is, Trump says it's too late to debate because voting has already started and it's bad for America. You're set to debate Walz on Tuesday. Does that mean your debate is bad for America?
Well, look. Look, first of all, the president already did a debate, and I thought he did a hell of a job. How did you guys think he did?
If by hell of a job you mean dodging every question, sucking up to Vladimir Putin, boasting about taking women's rights away, melting down about his tiny crowd sizes, and rambling about cats and dogs only to back out of every future debate afterward, then sure, Vance, he did one hell of a job. So clearly, Vance isn't persuading any new voters with this rally, just spewing more garbage into the MAGA echo chamber. And finally, it wouldn't be a JD Vance rally without a classic moment of cringe, where toward the end of this speech, he desperately tries to show how strong his relationship with his wife is, who never goes to any of his rallies, but ends up referring to himself as her wife instead.
This is the coolest, other than being a wife to this beautiful lady here and a father to our 3 kids, the greatest honor of my life.
There you have it. Vance is now changing his pronouns. He really will say or do anything to win this election. Speaking of wives, the long-lost wife of Donald Trump, Melania, made a rare appearance this morning for an interview to promote her book and was forced to defend her husband to boost her pre-order sales. Here she goes on to describe Donald Trump, the convicted adulterer, as a family man.
How do you feel when people say they don't like him? What do you wish they knew about him? That he's really a family man. He loves his family.
So much love that he forced Melania to take care of his toddler, Barron, as he was out having an affair with a porn star, a Playboy bunny, and while paying off a doorman at Trump Tower to stay silent about an alleged additional child he bore out of wedlock. Then, with seemingly a gun to her head, Melania expresses her support for Donald's candidacy and describes his first term as perfect, other than a few strong tweets.
So I think American people need to decide what they really want. Maybe some, strong tweets, but everything else great for this country.
Right. The deadly coup, the stolen documents, the failed border wall, the record high unemployment, the several 100,000 deaths, the overflowing ICUs, the 91 criminal charges, just a flawless term in the eyes of Melania, who still has not attended a single campaign rally of his in 2024. So I've played you guys the insanity of Melania and Vance, but I want to close out with a voice of reason. Here is Mark Cuban, the billionaire and owner of the Dallas Mavericks NBA team, going on Fox News to trash Trump's economic policies as insane while reminding the audience that Trump's plan will cause inflation.
Mark, you argue that, and it's always good to have you, you argue that Donald Trump's are particularly, I think you used the word insane. What did you mean by that?
Yep. Well, first of all, strategic tariffs aren't bad. So if a company's trying to dump, or a country's trying to dump in the United States and we have a manufacturer there, tariff them, that's great. But across the board tariffs, 10 or 20%, is just inflationary. It's a tax on the American consumer. But to make matters even worse, and what's truly insane, when you threaten a legendary company like John Deere with a 200% tariff if they move, but only a 10 or 20% tariff on China, what you're doing is you're making it easy for the Chinese competitors to take business away from John Deere. That is the definition of insane.
You know Donald Trump won't be thrilled by having a real billionaire with a higher net worth than him, with more successful businesses than him, and with fewer bankruptcies and no business fraud lawsuits leveled against him, label his economic proposals as insane while endorsing his political opponent, who is, in fact, a real human being, not AI. In all seriousness, Mark Cuban is a great voice for Kamala Harris to have on the campaign trail with 40 days to go. Not that she needs any help. I mean, she crushed it on MSNBC last night, laying out her economic agenda and demolished Trump during their debate. But with Cuban by her side, hammering the message home on Fox, Trump and Vance have about as good of a chance as Melania does at winning a Pulitzer Prize with her new memoir. Not a good one. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode of the Gen Z Perspective. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the show and give us a 5-star review on Apple, because as you can see, the MAGA lunatics have bombarded the podcast with 0-star reviews. I think we're worth a little more than that, but I also think it shows you how terrified they are of our generation. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys next time on the Gen Z Perspective. The Gen Z Perspectives theme song was created and produced by Pokari.